Hey, what is going on? It is Coach Eric Bach here, and welcome to the Eric Bach Show. And today we're going to hit something just a little bit different than usual. We're going to talk about some advice that helped me dig out from rock bottom. Yes, rock bottom. So, years ago, I had an accountant who robbed me blindly when I went all in on my business. So, a little bit of a backstory. I started my coaching business when I was 22, 23 years old. I'd been working in multiple different gyms, working with high performance athletes. And along the way, I had started my Eric Bach website, Bach Performance, WordPress blog. I was writing for places like T Nation, Men's Health, Men's Fitness, Muscle and Strength, all of the places, right? Because back in the day, that was the game. It was you would write for magazines, you would write for websites, you would get their logos and plaster them absolutely everywhere. And frankly, I miss those good old days. But with that aside, I had gone all into my business and had just walked away from a six-figure coaching job where I was working with elite level athletes, had great mentors who now at this point work with professional sports teams in terms of running their sports teams, their elite level college football programs, so on and so forth. And I just had decided I was going to take this plunge and go all into myself. A scary thing, no doubt, to leave the comforts of having a very steady income. I was making some money with my online coaching business, but not as much as I was making in person. And so I'd been training I was still training a few clients at this new gym downtown while I was building my online coaching business primarily. And my phone kept going off. And I'm one of these people where I'm like, I do not want to pick up my phone. I'm with a client. I want to be present. I want to be here, giving them an absolute rock star service. But after the seventh message, that shit was going off and driving me nuts. I'm like, hey, Chip, can I step outside and check this out? And when I finally listened to the voicemail, it was the secretary for my accountant. And her voice was absolutely rattled. It was frantic. It was scared. It was, call me back immediately. The FBI and investigators, IRS, were all raiding my accountant's office. Absolutely wonderful. Just the news I wanted in that cold November day. And essentially what had happened was this individual, Don Eiley, you can find that story all over on the webs if you want, had stolen all my payroll taxes, perfectly doctored the numbers, and had done this to over 100 Colorado businesses. At this point, it was the biggest white collar crime in the history of the state of Colorado, I believe. And essentially what he had done was, cooked all the books in terms of payroll taxes, everything that I'd done for the years up and coming up to that point, and pocketed all the money. Long story short, they never found the money. They found him, of course. He got more than the mandatory maximum sentence for his crimes. He should still be in there right now. And a lot of people went through the litigation process, tried to sue, get pennies on the dollar, so on and so forth. The amount of money that I had stolen at this point, it totaled over $100,000 with the money that was stolen, plus penalties, plus interest. Thank you, IRS, for keeping some of those things in there. Fortunately, they ended up waiving some of the penalties on that, but kept the interest on the overall payment. And long story short, I was still saddled with a crushing debt after going all in on my business, cutting out my primary source of income and taking the quote unquote big risk. And I was absolutely terrified. I was newly married. I had just got a brand new apartment. It was like on the top floor of this sick ass hotel building overlooking Denver, which was going through a big construction boom. So we had like all the cranes lit up and all the buildings at night. It was so cool, so fun. And all of a sudden, I thought everything was coming down on top of me. It was absolutely terrifying. No doubt, I definitely took some time and, partied, drank myself stupid. I had no idea what the fuck I was going to do for, for a few days. And then I remember picking up this book by Damon John from Shark Tank. It was called The Power of Broke. And in this book, he highlights how when he was younger, when he grew up in the hood, didn't have a whole lot of money, he had to rely on creativity. He had to rely on effort, hustle, grind, all of these different components that are in spades when you have no other choice because your back is against the wall and you need to succeed. And I read that book and it was a huge inspiration because, with my business, I already had some traction. With Bach Performance, I was already generating some income. I still had some clients. Yeah, now I had this massive debt, which was going to stifle my ability to grow the way that I had planned. But instead of viewing this purely as a massive setback, purely as something that was going to define who I was in a negative sense, I took it a different direction. I said, fuck it. You know what? We're going to use this and we are going to succeed despite it. We're going to use this fucking shit as some fuel and we are going to grow regardless. And it was one of those moments where my back was just purely against the wall. And I look at it and I was so distraught. And I feel like I could have taken any number of different ways. And you know what? I would lie if I didn't consider like going back and asking for my job back or doing something completely different because I had a skill set where I could succeed in multiple different industries because, man, I just didn't know how I was going to get myself out of this. But ultimately, I remember sitting down with an IRS investigator when we were going through this entire process. And he looked at me and said, Eric, you know what? Sometimes bad things happen to good people. this wasn't your fault, but it's still your responsibility to deal with the fallout. And that was a real swift kick in the nuts. Wasn't what I wanted to hear, but it was exactly what I needed to hear. Because we are all going to go through different periods of life where maybe we do things and we are the ones who fuck up. Or maybe there's a shitty situation and, I don't know, a world pandemic hits and completely, railroads your business. Some changes in government regulation completely change a lot of things that are going on with you personally or professionally. The reality is these things happen, but it's up to us to decide how we are going to react to it. We can sit down, we can fret about it, we can be pissed, we can drink ourselves stupid, we can mope around, we can do all of these things. And I completely get it. I've been there. But ultimately, we have to get back on the horse and we have to decide that this is not who I am going to be. I'm not going to be defined by external circumstances that are making this something difficult. Instead, we have to use that as fuel for the fire to be able to act differently. That is what people who succeed do. They do not make excuses, even if they are valued. They look at situations and they say, good, now I can learn something new. Now I can build a new skill set. Now I have more fuel to overcome. Because ultimately, things will happen that are not our fault, but they will always be our responsibility to fix them. And so I focused at this point on, you know what? I'm just going to continue providing value. I'm going to continue posting content. I'm going to continue serving my clients to the best of my ability. Yeah, I'm going to skip sleep a little bit and I'm going to get creative in terms of the things that I need to do to revolutionize the way that I am doing business because I've got to make some of this money. I've got a new wife. I've got a lot of stuff going on. I've got a new apartment I've got to pay for. I've got big dreams and things that I want to make happen. And logically, I think we all get this, but emotionally, that's one of the hardest parts. It's how do we emotionally regulate in these different time periods? Well, I can tell you at this point, for me, workouts were something that frankly saved me. Getting in the gym, getting out of my head and into my body, and we had to channel that aggression to train hard was a way to take the stress of that difficult situation and frankly, power through it. My mentor, Craig Ballantyne, has this saying that action alleviates anxiety. I've noticed a lot of people, when they aren't sure what to do, they freeze and they do nothing. And frankly, that just guarantees that you keep the problem. I like to do things a little bit differently. I like to act when there's pressure, when there's anxiety around a situation. Yes, sometimes we need headspace, we need times to think. But ultimately, the only way out is through. And many times, the only way to get out and through is to take care of your health, to take care of your body. Because there are a lot of different things that we can't control that will happen in this world, but you sure as shit can control the food that you put into your mouth. You sure as shit can determine whether you're going to hit the gym when you're tired or not. You sure as shit can determine whether you're going to take these sets close to failure and push your body. You can make the choice to turn off Netflix and go to bed. You can decide that you're going to follow a program instead of cherry picking different things from social media and hoping that it works. Ultimately, the beautiful thing about health and fitness is regardless of genetics, regardless of circumstances, regardless of anything else in the world, if there is a will, there is a way. If you keep showing up, if you keep training hard, if you keep making the right decisions, even if you don't always make the best decisions, you are gradually going to get there. Because ultimately, again, bad shit will happen. But it is always up to us to decide how we are going to react to it, how we are going to push, and how we are going to overcome. So if this hits with you, this is my message to you resonating. And hopefully that if you have something you're personally battling right now, personally, physically, financially, relationships, whatever it is, this is a call to control the controllables and act with intent. If you do that, you will power through. All right, gang, that is me signing off for today. If you got value directly from this podcast, let me know. Drop me a message over on Instagram at Bach Performance. And if you are enjoying these shows, please drop us a 5-star review on whatever platform you listen. And please share with a friend because that is the way that we grow. We do not do any paid advertising, anything like that. And so word of mouth is the best way to get this out and share it. All right, thank you so much. Hope you have a great day and I will catch you soon.